Yakima County has had, and Eastern Washington has had a long history of attempts by different ethnic groups to unionize. Okay, never successful, and in part that's why there's this incredible separation between farm worker and employer, a gulf that separates the two, and it's maintained through the community's political institutions, power structure, etc. So we were aware of that. But then in 1965, the Chavez organization in California launches its first strike. And one of the first strikes was against the DeGeorgia Corporation. And I think it's in September of 65. So in 66, between 1965 and 1966, the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee in California, headed by Chavez, strategizes, and eventually they win the right to a free election to determine if workers want to be represented by the union, no union, or I believe, if I remember correctly, the DeGeorgia Corporation had already set up a sort of a kind of company union. Except that the only people who can vote in that election are the original workers that went on strike. By now it's 1966. Okay. One of the things that the United Farm Workers did in California is that they sent out the Farm Workers Theater, the Teatro Campesino, already well developed in California. They began to send it out to different parts of the country, trying to get these workers to go back to vote in this election the following year. Okay? So there used to be a Spanish language broadcast on some of the local, well, in Sunnyside it was on KREW, the local radio station. And they began to announce that this Spanish theater was coming. People had never heard of this. They didn't say Farm Workers Theater. They just said Spanish theater was going to do a performance. So I remember that people got excited, and not only were we somewhat ignorant of the United Farm Workers, but the community itself was. So the school district, the school board allowed the use of the auditorium at the junior high in Sunnyside as a venue for the United Farm Workers to perform. And I remember I went to that performance, and there were farm workers, community people, growers, etc. But then when the curtain opened, and you have this high energy, very politicized theater group that strikes at the powerlessness of farm workers, and it's very direct. These are very intense, short skits. They're called actos, and there's no build-up, no. It's immediate. The message is immediate, and they went through these 5 or 6 of these very quickly. These skits, and you could almost see the growers in the community. They know what's going on, but they don't understand how they got into that situation. On the other hand, the workers are becoming empowered almost immediately. And I say all of this because it was the first time that news of and the presence of the United Farm Workers in California actually was felt in Yakima County.